Hi, Y10. Welcome to your final week on Great Expectations. This week, the week beginning the 13th of July, we're looking at the end of the novel, so the final chapter, and we're thinking about the idea of resolution. You've got 4 activities to complete this week, as well as some extra activities at the end. So your first activity is the introduction to the term resolution, which means the part of the book where any problems have been resolved and worked out. So this is the final chapter that we're looking at. And your activity, your task, is to think of the endings to 3 stories that you've either read or maybe you've seen them on TV or on film. Your task is to write down these 3 endings, these 3 resolutions to stories that you know well or stories that you've heard of. Your second activity is looking at response to the actual ending of the book. So you've got a YouTube link here of a short clip, and your task is to have a watch of that and think about how Estella as a character has changed since that first meeting between her and Pip, and why. So why has she changed, and what changes do you think have occurred since then? Third, you have got a large extract from chapter 59. So this is where Pip returns to the ruins of Satis house. So this is where we see those kind of tying together of loose ends, and Pip and Estelle reunite for the first time. So your task is to have a go answering these first 3 questions. So what mood do you think Dickens creates in the first 2 paragraphs of the extract? How does Dickens use dialogue to show how Estella is different to how she was earlier in the story? And what words and phrases does Dickens include to show how Pip's love for Estella is still the same? So it might be worth reading through, highlighting some quotes that will help you to support your answers, because remember we want a good GCSE quality response to these questions. So go through, pick out some key quotes, maybe do some annotation in the text that might support you, and then have a go answering those 3 questions. Your final activity is to have a look at these 3 key quotations. So try and write 2 sentences in response to each of the following quotations. You might consider individual words and phrases used in each quotation, or just explain what you infer from each one. So for the first one, it might be useful to pick out maybe what language devices you can see, any key words that stand out for you, and think about what effect that has on the reader. How is it important that this comes at the end of the story, for example? Think about the characters, think about the themes of love and growth and wealth and social change, that kind of thing. See if anything strikes out for you. It might be worth having a go doing a quote explosion first to see if you can come up with a few ideas, and then 1 or 2 sentences responding to each of these quotes. On top of that, there's also some extra activities you can have a look at. Might be interesting to look at the film or to listen to the podcast of Great Expectations, where you can listen to famous actors reading out the story, which might be quite interesting. It would be a good idea to look into the characters a bit further. Can you find out the meanings behind their names? A lot of the time in Dickens's stories, the names of the characters are quite revealing about their character or what they look like. So it might be interesting researching characters like Jaggers or Estella, that kind of thing. There's also some resources there. You can look at Spark Notes and consider the characters in a bit more depth, or have a look at Schmoop and the study guide for Great Expectations there. Might give you some further revision for anyone who is interested in it. So best of luck working your way through this activity. If you've got any questions, feel free to email a member of the English department or get in touch with your teachers. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Take care.